Hello and welcome back to an episode of the Mark Moss Show where we talk about the decentralized revolution each and every week. Of course, we're talking about the way the world is changing. And of course, we want to understand that, not just because it brings us some peace, so we kind of understand what's going on, but more importantly, we're trying to figure out how to navigate this correctly. Where should we live? What should we buy? How do we invest? What type of business should we run? How do I plan for my family? And all these things. And so as this world is changing rapidly, we need to be in front of these things. And so we're talking about the decentralized revolution. The world changes on a pendulum about every 250 years from this centralized structure to a decentralized structure. And we look at it through the lens of politics, finance, and technology. We look at it through the lens of those three things because when you're looking at complex systems like the body, complex systems like the economy, like the markets, like the geopolitical world, you can't just look at one small piece of it. That's the problem with modern medicine, right? You have these specialists going in to be a specialist in, cardiac care, for example, but all they do, they're this specialist in that, but they haven't looked at the total body overall. And so a lot of times they miss things because they don't have enough of the other information. And so the body is complex, the markets are complex. And so we look at it through the lens of those three things: politics, finance, and technology. Now, technology is the thing that changes the world more than anything else. When we look back through thousands of years of history, we see it's always technology that changes things. And technology changes things, it changes us, and then we're changed because of that. And then we have different problems, and technology comes to solve those. But it also typically changes the way that we organize ourselves from a decentralized world to a centralized world. And so today I want to talk about that piece. Specifically, we're going to talk about the technology. Now, we normally talk about the decentralized technology of Bitcoin, the decentralized revolutionary technology. And Bitcoin is giving us this decentralization at a time as the world is trending back towards decentralization, which is very interesting. But I want to talk about a different technology today. And the different technology that I want to talk about today is almost maybe could potentially be the opposite, the antithesis of Bitcoin. And I'm talking about AI. So while Bitcoin is a decentralized technology that will help us start to decentralize how we store our value, how we communicate our value, how we transfer value, all those things, AI is almost this centralizing technology where we could all become very dependent on one or two of these big AIs, which could be problematic. So we'll see this kind of shaping up. Now, I got a lot to cover today. I want to get to two main companies that are really pushing this AI, and one of them is a very centralizing company, and one of them is a decentralized AI. So we're going to talk about that. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I want to cover it from a different angle. Now, you might have heard, or you might be expecting me to start to cover like what it does and how you can use it, and will it replace your job, and how much money can you make from it, and all those things, which are all good things, and we could discuss those. I did do a video on my main YouTube channel recently, and I kind of covered a lot of those topics. So if you go to my main YouTube channel, just search Mark Moss, you can find that video. You'll see kind of what it is, how we can use it, what potential it has, things like that. But I want to talk about it from a different angle today. And I want to look at how it could work in this decentralized world that we're transitioning into. As we go from this unipolar world where basically we kind of have this one world government, right? This United States homogeny, this, one world currency, the dollar, so to speak. But now as the world's breaking apart and China's spinning off and Russia's spinning off and et cetera, how does it work then? As the world moves away from peace and more towards decentralization, deglobalization, unipolar to a multipolar world, there's going to be more friction. There's going to be more battle, more competition, which in itself is maybe a good thing, the competition side, not if it leads to warfare, obviously. But I want to talk about the potential for the AI to really speed up this decentralized transition and what that means. We're going to talk about the U.S.-China artificial intelligence arms race. We're going to talk about potentially the problems of AIs fighting AIs, talk about the potential for this to really escalate into a cybersecurity problem, which of course we hear the World Economic Forum talking about all the time. And then we'll talk about it from an investment standpoint, where some of these investments are, who's invested into it. And then, as I said, I want to get into kind of this open AI versus decentralized AI. So I got a lot to cover. Now, to frame this up a little bit, there's two basic, very broad general categories for AI. We have what would be considered narrow AI, and then broad or general AI. And so narrow AI is artificial intelligence. So it's really machine learning, where the computer, the machine, the software is learning how to do things. And in this narrow AI, you can train it to do very specific and narrow tasks. So you could teach it how to play chess, for example, right? You could give it a document and tell you to write a summary of that document. So those are narrow tasks that it can do. Then there's what would be considered broad or general AI, and that is where it has to have like intelligence and creativity that a human could have, where it could build its own experiences and opinions. And as far as I know, and I've done quite a bit of research on this, as a matter of fact, I had the pleasure, the opportunity to actually sit down with Naval Ramakant, who is a Silicon Valley, venture capital legend, let's just say that. I had a chance to sit down and have this conversation with him face to face. And according to my research, according to him, we are really no closer into getting this broad general AI moving forward than we have been in the last 50 years. So we're making massive progress in this narrow AI, but not so much progress in the general AI. And the reason why I want to lay that part out is because a lot of people are very scared of this AI, where it's the singularity moment, where it's going to become smarter than humans. We go into this Terminator, from the movie Terminator, where the AI gets smarter than humans and then realizes that, well, humans are the problem, and let's just kill all the humans. Right? So that's kind of this narrative that's been brought out by the singularity moment and by these Terminator movies. I think that is overblown. It's certainly overblown for now. For now, we're certainly no closer to that becoming a reality than we ever have been. Now, some people are saying maybe by 2040, 2050, we could be making progress on that. So, we'll check back in on that in 20 or 30 years from now. I probably won't be here on the radio in 20 or 30 years from now, but we'll check back in on that. But for now, we have this narrow AI, and it's making massive, massive progress. And so there appears to be an arms race happening right now. There's an article that came out this week from a Harvard researcher warning that the AI arms race could actually destroy civilization, which is a pretty big claim. Now, it's obviously no surprise that the U.S. and China have been in a competitive war, at least we'll say. I believe it's actually a financial war, probably kicked off by the Trump-era tariffs that were put into place. But there's this arms race going on. Now, each country is trying to spend more and more money trying to get this AI going. In the year 2021, the U.S. government spent $10 billion on AI R&D, 9.3 which came from the Department of Defense. It's a pretty big number. Of course, the Chinese public expenditures for AI is less transparent. They're not transparent about anything, so we really don't know how much money they spent. However, analysts are saying it's probably about the same amount of money. So kind of racing for this. It's trying to see which could go on, which one could lead the pace here. But this AI arms race carries potentially huge risks for both countries. Of course, any arms race poses huge risk for any country. The race to nuclear weapons, or any weapons for that matter, poses huge risk. But we're at this interesting point in time where, as we've seen arms races and warfare change, it's become a lot more critical, a lot more dangerous for all of humanity. So I'm going to talk about that. We'll get into this AI versus AI in cyberspace, cyber pandemics, and some of the investment stuff. We'll come back with all that. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Mark Moss Show, talking about the decentralized revolution, talking specifically about how this new artificial intelligence boom that's really been accelerated in the last about 90 days is changing things on that front. Now, we're talking about specifically how AI could lead to this a new form of arms race. It's a new weapon that could be used, both defensively and offensively, of course. Now, we're yet to see how this could play out, but part of the reason why is because humans are no good at imagining the future. What humans do is we imagine better versions of what we have today. We have cars today. We'll have flying cars in the future. But we can't imagine or envision new things because we don't have the building blocks to build those things yet today. And so we just kind of imagine things. So when we can sit here and speculate, as I said, I was kind of reading this article from this Harvard researcher talking about how it could destroy civilization. Well, we don't really know how it could destroy civilization. He doesn't really point any ways in how that could do that. We just sort of have this speculation that, well, I guess I saw the movie Terminator when I was a kid, and so it could just destroy civilization like that. And maybe it could. I just don't think we're there yet, going back to that kind of narrow versus broad AI. But another article that came out this week, plenty of fear-mongering here. It says that soon AI will battle other AI in cyberspace. This is from an Israeli expert. He's predicting this, saying that artificial intelligence is expected to lead to a spike in cyber attacks. Now, one reason why I think this is important is because, of course, the World Economic Forum, good old Klaus Schwab and buddies, they just met in Davos a few weeks ago, and the one thing they kept talking about, well, climate change, misinformation, and cyber attacks. That's what they keep talking about. Cyber attacks, cyber attacks, cyber attacks. They're coming, they're coming, they're coming. They're planning, they're planning, they're planning. And, oh, now they're here. So we're starting to see this really start to pick up a lot of steam. And so is it that they're sort of conditioning for this to happen, so we're prepared for it when it happens, so we're prepared to give them the opportunity to save us from these cyber pandemics? We'll see. But basically, they're saying that AI could lead to an increase in that. And they're saying the reason why is because AI can create an infinite amount of content in seconds. Okay? But experts are already warning of an AI-based cyber attack. And they predict, these experts, supposedly experts, predict that only other AIs will be able to put a stop to them. So, again, back to the Terminator movie, the only way to stop the Terminator sent back in time was to send another AI Terminator back in time. And that's kind of what they're saying here. AI could create these cyber attacks, but the only way to stop this AI from cyber attacking would be to create another AI to put a stop to them. It says there was this event called Cyber Tech Tel Aviv in 2023. It just took place. And they said the world's top cybersecurity leaders came together to look at the problems and the solutions to combat these types of threats. So some of the things, for example, is like ChatGPT, which we were talking about, which could basically write essays, right? It can write summaries, it can write emails, it can write all these things. And they've put kind of gates or restrictions onto what ChatGPT can do. So, for example, you can't ask it to write hate speech. You can't ask it to write like racist things and things like that. And you also can't supposedly ask it to do things like create viruses and malware and things like that. So they've put these restrictions or these gateways on it to try to prevent it from being used for bad. But what this group found, CyberArk found, was that with a little bit of persistence, you could get ChatGPT to actually create malware. So like viruses for computers, which of course it's not supposed to be able to do. It says that the researchers managed to get ChatGPT to create malicious code, but also they found a way to hide that malicious code from your standard antivirus system in a way that is quite original. So not only did they use it to create a new one, but they also used it to create a new one that could be hidden from all known malware antivirus systems today. The thing that we have to understand is that technology is a tool. It's no different than a tool for, like a screwdriver, right? A set of tools to fix a car, a pair of scissors, a fork, right? And that screwdriver could be used for many things. It comes down to who picks that screwdriver up and how they decide to use it. You could obviously attack somebody and cause a lot of damage and harm with a screwdriver, or you could, open up a bottle, or you could fix something with it. And so it really comes down to it. And so when we have tools like this, the tools themselves are neutral. And this is why it kind of goes to this gun debate that's been raging forever. And a gun is also a tool. And so the proponents of guns would say that it's not what's in a man's hand, it's what's in a man's heart. right? If somebody wants to kill somebody with a gun and you take away the gun, well, they could find any number of ways, any number of hundreds of other ways to kill someone, right? I mean, we all drive big vehicles. That's pretty dangerous. I mean, you can get any type of thing from hardware stores, and I'm not going to list those here, but you understand that you can't really stop someone. I mean, you can do it with your bare hands. And so it really always comes back down to what's in a man's heart, not what's in a man's hand. And so when we start looking at tools like this, they can put all types of gateways and checkpoints on there, but it also limits what we can do for good as well. So let's say that we're gonna give you a screwdriver, but it's if you go up to the mountains at all, I like to go snowboarding. I was just up in Vancouver snowboarding last week, and at like where the chairlifts are, where you get on and off the mountain, they have tools so you can like adjust your bindings and things like that, right? But the screwdrivers have a chain, and they're chained to the bench there. And so they could chain that screwdriver down so I couldn't go attack people in the line with it. But then it also limits what I'm able to do. If I needed to work on like a car, like a snowcat that came over, a snowmobile, the chain isn't long enough to go do that. And so we can put these checks, these gateways in, but then it limits what we're able to do in the potential chance that maybe a couple of people might try to do something crazy like create malicious code. Most of us would never even think about that. But they said that there's what they're saying is that there's even greater threats to cybersecurity because of this now. They said that according to the World Economic Forum, cyber attacks already increased by almost 40% last year. 40%. Now, of course, right, more people are using computers, more bad actors, and we're going to have more cyber attacks, I guess. But they're saying that they could rise exponentially over the coming year because of these AI models, because the average person now could write their own code and do this. And it says that the primary challenge for cybersecurity is that the attackers seem to be one step ahead. I've always wondered about this, right? Here's a quote here. AI-based attacks are going to be much more pervasive, much more adaptable, and much more rapid than they were in the past, and human defenders can't keep up with the pace. So think about that. The antivirus, the cybersecurity experts are trying to stay one step in front of the exploiters, but they can't do that. I've always wondered, how does the antivirus software stay in business if there aren't actually viruses? Could it be plausible that they could release the virus and then release the software? Of course, that would just be, that would be really, really bad, apparently, right? And they're talking about how these cybersecurity experts are saying that AI could make it easier and more efficient for attackers to do these cyber type of crimes, and how hard it will be for them to keep up the pace with this. And basically what they're saying here is that a human defender won't be able to figure out what's going on, find the right countermeasures, and react fast enough, because the AI attack would have already reached its destination. So what they're saying is that we're going to have to fight fire with fire and assign the defense task to an AI-based system. So we have to create machines to battle the machines, is what they're saying. The problem is that when you start leaving all of this up to AI, is AI able to make these types of decisions? It says here, our AI knows how to autonomously classify information, saving months and sometimes years of work for an organization. And so we should be able to classify these types of changes and know if they're malicious or not. We'll see how this shapes up. But like I said, what I'm interested in is, like, we're hearing more and more and more about this cyber pandemic. And is this, again, is it picking up because of what the World Economic Forum has been talking about? We saw that just after the World Economic Forum was talking about these potential cyber attacks, we started getting more of them, including we saw in the United States the FAA computers were attacked and shut down, causing the largest blackout of flights, or the largest shutdown of flights, I believe, in U.S. history. And it didn't just happen in the U.S., it happened in, I believe, Canada, and maybe it was Australia, a few other places as well. So it happened right after, of course, the WEF was talking about it. And we also just saw that it also happened in Italy. Italy had its internet restored after having a nationwide outage on the internet. And of course, there's reports of a global ransomware attack that was happening. And again, is this just all coincidence, or sometimes is it too coincidental? Is it when there's smoke, there's fire? And that's sort of what we're seeing right here. We saw that this Italy's National Cybersecurity Agency warned about these ransomware attacks and how they were targeting servers worldwide. And they're looking to exploit a software vulnerability. You know, part of the thing with centralized software versus decentralized software is I think with decentralized software, you can get a lot more people working on the software potentially. You can get a lot more eyes on it. You can find a lot more of these bugs. Maybe that's a benefit, trying to find these exploitations before they become a problem. But a lot of people were talking about this over the week, over on social media, talking about, is this the first of like what to expect about lockdowns happening on the internet? Was this a dry run? Could this have been coincidental that the WEF was just talking about it and then it's happening? And I don't know. That's just conspiratorial talk. We don't really have any evidence of that. But it is certainly, again, very coincidental that it's happening right now. Now, on another side, back to kind of the economic side of things, one of the kind of famous technology stock pickers, Cathie Wood, she runs a firm or an ETF called ARK, and it basically has all the tech companies in this ETF, which of course is famously down. She's lost so much money. It's a wonder that people still listen to her. But she's now talking about she's predicting that Amazon would have more robot workers than human workers by 2030. And that's not surprising. It's not surprising at all. It says if you compare the number of robots Amazon has to the number of employees, it's about a third right now. And we believe that by the year 2030, Amazon will have more. So Amazon already has what would be considered robots. But what do you consider robots? Anytime a machine does one thing, like picks up a package and moves it somewhere else, like that's not happening all over the place. It's not happening all the time. Well, of course it is. It's happening to about a third of the people right now. But they're saying that by 2030, it could replace all of them. Now, is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing if all these robots, Amazon currently has more than 520,000 robots in use and could potentially get over to about 1.6 million employees over the next 7 years. Is that a bad thing? It could be bad if you were one of those warehouse workers that got your job replaced, unless you went and found a better job. So since the dawn of time, technology always puts people out of work. That's the whole point. That's the entire point. If I was carrying one brick at a time, it would take me very long to move these bricks over distance, right? So then using my brain and human ingenuity, I would say, well, instead of having 10 people all carrying bricks back and forth, why don't I make a wheelbarrow? And then I can put all the bricks into a wheelbarrow, and then I could do the work of 10 men carrying all the bricks at once in a wheelbarrow. That was a piece of technology, and it replaced the work of those 10 people that were needed to carry those bricks. Was that bad? Well, it was if that was your only way to make money, was carrying those bricks, but it wasn't bad because ultimately what it does is it freed those people up to go focus on higher value things. Now, the world had stayed pretty much dirt. The world had stayed pretty much with no real technological advancements for most of history. Things really got interesting in the late 1700s, in the 18th century, which was the start of the Industrial Revolution. And all of a sudden, a new technological revolution happened, and we created machines. And all of a sudden, a machine could do the work of 5,000 men. The horror. What's going to happen to all those 5,000 men that got their jobs replaced by one machine? And of course, the answer is, well, those men would go on to do science and medicine and further improve the world. So we can talk about this all the time. Technology always replaces the need for human power, but it allows those humans to go work on higher level tasks. We could have 10,000 guys out there digging roads, or we could bring in one tractor and just do the work of all those people. But what are all those people going to go do? Well, they're going to find new things to go work on, like creating new forms of tractors and all these service businesses based around tractors and making parts for tractors and on and on and on. Designing AI, for example. And so we could look back through time and look at any piece of technology and how it's made us more efficient. That's the whole point. It makes us more efficient, so we don't need as many hours to go into that. And then those hours freed up allows us to go work on other things. Now, the only way that you're really affected by this is if, I hate to say it, but you're too, should I say, lazy to pour into your own self, into your own education. For the lazy and uninitiated, it's a bad thing. But for the smart and for the people willing to take on this new technology and use it, it's powerful. What's happening is that as this technology has continued to change things, as I say all the time, technology is what changes the way the world works and how we organize ourselves. And so really about 250 years ago, at the start of this Industrial Revolution, it started to centralize us and put us into cities with factories. And we had these big factories and these big cities, and it became very centralized. In 1908, we had, was it the fourth Industrial Revolution, which was automobiles and mass production or assembly lines. Now that changed things drastically, and is also part of this American story of this middle class and the shrinking middle class. Every time there's been a new piece of technology, people are worried about it because it replaces jobs, and it does. But it also opens up new jobs. And so as humans, we have unlimited potential, unlimited. And the reason why we have unlimited potential is because we have ingenuity and we have creativity. And as long as we have creativity, we're always going to see problems that need to be solved. And we're always going to come up with new solutions to solve those problems. And we're always going to have progress, and we're always going to have advancement. And there's never going to be a lack or a shortage of things to work on. The problem is, if you're not creative, if you're not ambitious, if you're not looking at those things, well, and all you want to do is the one task, you could have a hard time. So an example would be in the Pacific Northwest, we had all these logging towns, and entire towns were built just for logging there. But now that's all been basically shut down. Most of it's moved up to Canada or other countries. And these logging towns that used to be robust and busy and have lots of jobs have now shriveled up and died. Now, some of these towns want to supply or provide welfare or UBI or whatever you want to call it to these people, because what are they going to do? I mean, they were a logger and now there's no logging, and now they're in this town and all they know how to do is logging, and there's no logging jobs, and so they have nothing to do, so we have to give them money. Well, I can tell you what they should do. They should learn a new skill and they should move somewhere else, right? And that's exactly the point here. So we have this situation where computers are, yes, replacing jobs. You imagine how many people used to take to sit there and transcribe books by hand, and then we came up with the printing press. But what about all those people that were transcribing books? No, they do something else. So Amazon's helping. Amazon says that they've committed about $1.2 billion to provide employees with educational programs. $1.2 billion, offering mechatronics, robotics, all these programs. And so hopefully these people who see that, there's this potential for their job to get replaced could take advantage of this and move up higher on the food chain, right? That's what we want them to do. Now, this is a big piece, because what happened is, back to 1908, Henry Ford invented the automobile and the mass production, the assembly line. What happened is that led to massive abundance and prosperity for the United States. And we got this very robust middle class. And not just the United States, the developed world that was embracing this Industrial Revolution. And we got this massive growth and this robust middle class. And the reason why is because the assembly line equalizes everybody. So you could be the smartest person in the world, I could be the dumbest person in the world, and we're next to each other on the assembly line, and I plug in my part and you plug in your part, and we've done the exact same work. Even though you're smarter and I'm not as smart as you, we've provided the same value. We've each plugged in our part, and we each get paid equally. And basically what it did is it took all these people who were not motivated and not smart and didn't want to work smarter, and it pushed them up and made them on an even playing field as the people who were smarter and more ambitious. And that worked pretty well, but the middle class has obviously been hollowed out. You hear about stories all the time. Now, part of it is because we shipped a bunch of jobs overseas, apparently, which we did. So that's part of it. But the reason why is because those types of jobs don't require people to be very smart or hardworking or innovative. And so let's just give those to other countries that can do them much cheaper. There's other reasons why I don't want to dig into that. But the part that I want to dig into is that we've moved into the information age. So the technological revolutions of the 17 to 1800s, even in the early 1900s, were all transportation-based. So that was where the big technologies were. Steam engines to move stuff across continents, steel and steam engines to move stuff across the oceans, the automobiles. It was all transportation-based. When we got into 1971, we had the new innovation, the technological revolution, which was a microprocessor, which brought us computers and telecommunications and the internet. We entered the information age. And the problem is now we don't need to depend so much on the physical and the transportation side. I mean, of course, we still need that. But now we're working more on the information age. And that now puts the preference back to people who are smarter, who are building their own education, who are taking time to educate themselves, who are taking time to think creatively, looking for problems and coming up with solutions and things like that. And that difference of us moving from a assembly line where everybody was equal to the information age where the smarter people are really able to start pulling out ahead is really led to this massive difference in the income. So you hear about this income inequality, which I think is a wrong metric to look at, but you look at how much people at the top are making versus how much people at the bottom. And AI, and as we continue to move into the information age, as we continue to have tools to help with the information age, like AI and all the other ones that will come in after it, we're going to continue to get a bigger gap. Now, we shouldn't. I would hope that you listening, I would hope that everybody would step up and go, shoot, I better learn this new stuff. I better learn to start thinking creatively. I better start paying attention. I should start watching videos. I should start playing with this stuff. But instead, most people would rather watch the Kardashians and play with TikTok. And that's fine. You should have the ability and the right to do that. Just don't complain when your job gets replaced, right? Because we always have to be providing more value to the world. And as the world changes, we have to stay on top of that. It's happened since the beginning of time, and it's always going to continue to happen. It's called creative destruction. It destroys some things, but it creates new ones. And we're humans. We're able to learn things. This old dogs can't learn new tricks. We're not dogs. We can learn new things. We can learn new skills, and we should. Now, let's talk about the two different types of AI. So the big one is this OpenAI. That's the name of the company. It's called OpenAI, but the irony there is that it's not open. So OpenAI is a closed AI that's been trained. Somebody gave them all the information, but who gave it to them? Who built up the AI?
There will be more robots working at Amazon than human beings, according to Kathy Wood. That means in our lifetimes,
There we go. Sorry about that. Played an audio clip, but who fed the AI? Who gave it the information? Who told it what it can and can't do? It can't provide malicious code. It can't write hate speech. Well, what is hate speech? What qualifies? And so who controls that? It's a big deal. It's a dangerous problem. The founder of OpenAI, Sam Altman, he came out and said this week that AI is poised to break capitalism. Now, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. I've tried to understand it. Capitalism isn't something to be broken. Human nature, we all are capitalists. We have private property, our own private body, our own ideas, and our labor. And we have our resources that we acquire, our private property. And we always work to try to be more efficient with those resources, those scarce resources that we have. And we do that through a number of ways, innovation and also through free and voluntary exchange. And everywhere there's capitalism. Little kids in preschool are trading sandwiches for crackers. In prison, they're trading onions for cigarettes. And in North Korea, they're trading stuff, right? We're always trading. We're always trying to be more efficient with the scarce resources. That's capitalism. And AI is just one more tool that will help us to use our resources more efficiently. So I don't even know where he gets off saying that it's going to break capitalism. You can't break capitalism. It's going to break ingenuity. It's going to break the desire to be more efficient with our scarce resources. It's going to break the desire to freely trade with one another. Like, that's never going to happen. Now, on the other side, we have stable diffusion. And stable diffusion is poised to be an open source AI, which is in contrast to open AI, which is actually closed. I'm running out of time. I don't have time to get into stable diffusion, but I would ask you to go do your own research on that. Just search stable diffusion, check that out. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Mark Moss Show. We're talking about the decentralized revolution and the role that AI as a technology is playing in this new revolution, as it will lead to more decentralization. That's what I got. Thanks so much for listening.